So I think we'll start. We have good amount of people.
Thank you, Likith, and hello to all. It's nice to the project. I'm sure you'll have all read the brief. And I think this is an interesting new initiative by NASA to explore how new media practices, and in this case specifically film, can be used to make arguments concerning architecture, or to be able to describe architecture, speak about its relevance to the world, speak about its relevance to people's lives. And I think this is, and I think one thing that film does is that it automatically makes things kind of, let's say, about story, narrative, people, communities. But these stories may not have people as well, but it becomes something that is getting played out in time. So this time, through the discussions that the NASA team, we realized that it would be interesting to kind of think about how um, explore this intersection between cinema and space and architecture. We realized that the question of community was central to much of the discourse that is happening in the world today. Uh, Questions of, in many ways, it's interesting to think about what exactly is a community. And how is a community made? Like I've said in the brief, the community is not a stable thing and it's not a permanent thing. We are constantly being, we always belong to many, many different kinds of communities. One of the greatest communities that we claim that we all belong to was that of the example, religious or caste-based or institution-based communities that often that we claim to be part of. Or maybe on the certain nation of citizenship, for example. The community and institution, for example, is it could be a school where we work together on something, or we are working on something, we in the same spaces and we inhabit in the same way, or we all subscribe to a certain set of values. Um, Now, all communities in many ways have are specialized in that way. They're specialized through the way that we imagine the relationship, how a community is made, the spaces themselves in which community is put together, as well as the everyday practices through which a community is formed. You go every day for a chai and you are part of a community of chai drinkers, for example. Yeah. So we really wanted to think about all of these different ways in which a community is being made and how space plays a part in the making of that community. What are the imaginations, spaces, and practices through which the community is made? Because as we discover when we are thinking about community, a community is always a slightly more is a complicated thing. As much as it makes a set of rules within a set of ideas and a set of friendships within the community, it also makes a certain set of rules that communities have to, everyone within the community has to subscribe to if they have to be part of that community. And if they are not following those rules, they are exiled or they are thrown out. Or so there's always a sense of the, kind of difficult boundary that a community has to constantly negotiate. An individual's presence in that community is negotiated by is allowed and disallowed in many different ways. By sometimes by rules, by practices, sometimes by just like ignoring. So we really wanted to think about us as architects who are involved in the making of spaces, who are often involved in the making of boundaries. How do we then negotiate the architectural boundaries with the boundaries of community? How do we imagine that relationship? Is that relationship porous? Is that relationship hard? Is that relationship something that we need to transgress? Uh, what are also the rules within the community that allow something to happen? What are the rituals of everyday life in the community? But we wanted to keep it very, very open-ended. Right? We also were thinking about, the communities that are involved in the making of architecture. There are communities there as well. For example, the community of craftsmen in a firm, randomly application, or laborers on a site. These larger kind of, let's say, conceptual way in which you are thinking about the word community. What are the value systems that you're bringing to the question of community? Why is it important to tell that story? Okay. Or probably not so much that, but why is it that you feel it's important to tell that story? Right? What is it that's keeping you excited about that story? That and I think that is really what your kind of first part of the argument of what doesn't have to do with the vast theory from. That is really what the first part is trying to get you to say. Yeah. That what is your interpretation of that brief? This brief, very simply open-ended, trying to say what community and space or community and architecture, how are you seeing that relationship? Yeah. Now, in this, you will of course, to make your argument, you have to place this within the questions that you're trying to, you know, address. The second part of it is the treatment. Now, I mean, I don't want to elaborate too much on this because really the film language is coming so many different forms. There is, I mean, a new documentary film language is coming so many different forms. There are forms that try and mix the documentary with the fictional. There are forms that are purely kind of talking heads speaking to the camera. There are sometimes films that have no talking heads at all. There are purely visual essays. Sometimes music is used. Sometimes it's all animation. The kinds of forms through which you can tell that story are incredibly varied. And I think it will be interesting also to think about which is the form that you're choosing to tell your story. In other words, the form is subservient to the argument you're trying to make. Often I find that very often, especially young filmmakers, they get very excited by the forms available to them within filmic language. And of course, there's a wide variety and a plethora of these forms, and all of them are very exciting. But oftentimes, those are purely decorative in nature, and they are not necessarily used to the fundamental argument that the film is trying to make. And it's important for us to think about how are we treating the material so that it's able to make the argument most persuasive. Even if that argument is a purely visual one or a purely spatial one, it's important for us to think as to which is the right way of showing. The other thing is that the time limit that's been given for the film is at the same time very short, but it's also very long. A 10-minute, a 7 to 10-minute film is a lot of footage. You can make very complex arguments with it. You can make almost enigmatic arguments with it. You can provoke questions through it. All arguments need not be arguments where you have an answer. Many arguments might just be kind of discoveries. They are trying to figure things out, and they're using film as a medium to do that. And even that is great. An argument doesn't necessarily need a clear answer, and we don't expect you, in many ways, to have answers to these questions. Because if you did, then you would be geniuses and Nobel Prize winners. We do want you to explore and kind of find ways of entering, find ways of discovering, find ways of representing communities, spaces, people, architecture in the most sensitive and most persuasive way possible. That's the second part, which is treatment. Right? The third is, of course, all of this cannot be done unless you have tangible material to work with. Whether that's a particular kind of community that you know, whether that is some architecture, some buildings that you're interested in and that you have access to. Because otherwise you'll write a proposal and then, later on you realize that you just don't have access to them, or those people are refusing to allow you to make the argument. In which case you guys will be stuck. So since you're going to be choosing a few of these that we will ask you to, that we will say will be the ones that will move to stage 2. We are hoping that the ones that we choose will have the wherewithal to be able to access those spaces, whether those are the people or the places or the buildings that you will need to be able to do the story. For example, if there's a film that is about, that is going to, and that you have also, if you're looking at a more experimental form, that you have the manpower in your team to be able to produce that. So that's an important thing also that we hope for you to have within the proposal that we are asking you to create. I think I'd like to stop there, and maybe if you guys have some questions, wait for Nikhil to, I believe there are 3 or 4 questions. Maybe I can answer answer those questions. And maybe there are other clarifications that you need from me. Please do let me know.
Yeah, so first we'll proceed with questions if anyone has in the meet. So you can just unmute yourself and ask your queries, or you can just text in the chat box. I'll just read it out and so we'll answer it. But by that time, we'll start with one question that we had received in the queries form. So it was like, can we focus on a micro community, that is a neighborhood or a particular profession or a cultural group? Is the question.
Yes, yes. It all depends on the way you're looking at them. You can focus it in at any of the idea of the community. Like I said earlier, sometimes the community is also the community of citizenship, as an So I think it's not so much the scale of the community; it's the way that you make the argument about the community. So I don't think the size of the community matters. It's the way you imagine, the way you define the idea of the community. I think that and you have to be conscious that the community is not a given; the community is made by practices, by people, by things, right? So, in that sense, five people together in a room is a community of card players.
Yeah, and the other one was with regard to the proposal stage, what level of detail is expected in the initial concept and frame section? So here he is trying to ask that should he include the discussion of theoretical frameworks or any particular frames that one wants, like the sketching part can be included and all.
I think I leave it up to your own intelligence in the sense of the way that you kind of want to present your argument. If you believe that giving reference images is a good idea, please go ahead and do that. If you think that you want to kind of highlight the theoretical framework of your project, I think that's also fine. I don't want to set up a rule book for everyone to follow, because I believe that depending on the nature of the story being told, everyone will want to highlight different parts of their argument. So I think it's important for that also to be there. There may be some projects that are really interested in that have really interesting formal idea, but the questions of community may be kind of clean, simple questions, and vice versa. So I think we should leave it open so that we have a nice variety of different, exciting, and interesting films possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the chat box, you have received a query from Akesh Dangar. So they're asking, what do you exactly expect by communities? Does it have to be working class only? And what is expected to portray in stage one of the trophy?
So, stage one, like I said, is a clean textual argument largely about what you're trying to do with the film. And I thought I made it clear that I do not think that when we think of communities, we're only looking at one kind of community. I mentioned Indian as one kind of community. I mentioned the fact that if you all come from a certain school, you are part of a community. Of course, you can be working class communities as well. You can be transgender communities, girls within a school community. There are many different kinds of community. In fact, that is exactly what we are asking you to really think about. That how is a community produced, and what is the role of architecture in producing that? So obviously, there are different kinds of communities that belong. Sometimes they are around access of class, caste, gender, use, affiliation, belief, political imaginations, Rajnikant fans. I mean, all of them are different kinds of communities. So we are not trying to restrict the way that you are thinking about what you call a community.
Yeah, I guess you have the answer, Rakesh. And moving on to the next query we have. So, what is the evaluation criteria for the final film? This is particularly regarded to the second the final film stage. So, they are asking, is it more about architectural insight or film technique or storytelling? Upon what basis is the evaluation criteria for the final film?
So I would like to ask whoever these people are, how do they evaluate a film? Or how do they evaluate a work of art? Do you evaluate it with very specific kind of criteria in mind, or do you evaluate for the whole? Most of the times, when a film or an architectural work is there, you are evaluating it for all of it together. Sometimes some things work better, sometimes some things don't work better. It's fine. But finally, you're looking at the entire work as one piece. You don't look at the Mona Lisa and say, "Uska smile अच्छा था, लेकिन color जो मारा है hair पर वो जरा ठीक नहीं था." No, you don't do that, right? So what we are looking at is a persuasive film that is really trying to make an interesting way of thinking about communities and architecture together. Now, this may have a simple argument told beautifully. It may be a really complex argument told in the most clear way. I mean, it could be any way. I mean, sometimes most people, but it's really important. I think what's important is the argument being made. Yeah? What are the ways in which we are kind of, let's say, what is the nature of the argument being made? Are we, what are we trying to say is important, and how we are trying to say it is important, and I think both are equally important. I don't think there's one that takes precedence to the other. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have another question in the chat box. It says, in case we have any changes we make in script during stage 2 from the initial one of stage 1, minor changes only, will that work out?
Yeah, it is fine. I mean, we don't expect you to have the entire kind of thing storyboarded right at the beginning. What we are looking for is your intention and your methods, and when you are clear with that. Obviously, when you go to site and when you are working with people, the film changes, and we should allow it to change because only then the film is truthful. So, as long as the argument and the methods of making you are relatively clear about, of course, changes are going to happen, and we will accept the fact that changes are going to happen. It's not as this is not a kind of rule idea that ऐसे ही होना चाहिए आपने ये बोला आपने ये नहीं किया as long as you're within the ballpark as long as your argument is the argument you're trying to make has stayed true to its core we will allow you to kind of expand and explore as much as you like within that format. Does that work?
Mm. He said thank you. What kind of visual style is encouraged in the treatment section? Should there be a clear storyline or can it be purely atmospheric?
It can be anything you want it to be. There is no
Yeah.
one form. I am somebody who likes absolutely every form of film. I like all different kinds of architecture as well. As long as it's well done, I like the architecture of a house and I like the architecture of a mosque. It's not really kind of one kind of form is not one that I would be happy about. In fact, I would encourage you to think about form as something that's integral to the storytelling and the allow the story to emerge. Allow what you're trying to convey, not the story. Allow what you're trying to convey be as true to the form as possible. So yes, pure visual things are fine. Only textual things are fine. If you just want text on screen, that is fine. I don't care about the formal imagination you have as long as it caters to the argument you're making.
Yes, I guess that answers the question. And Jyotishri M. Nayak has a query, sir. So they are like, do we have any specific limitations for the proposals and expectations to be met?
I think those are there in the submission requirements themselves. So if you can read them and take them, that's fine. Yes, you are allowed to use archival footage as well. You just have to credit it. Yeah, Jennifer. And yeah, do we need to focus more on how communities of architecture can be converted from intangible to tangible form? Focus, I mean, like I said, it's about the argument, Marjorie. Um, that it really is up to you. I don't think I can answer that in one way or the other. If all of you guys are looking for a rule book that ये करेगा तो टिक ये करेगा तो टिक ऐसे नहीं होता. हाँ? Uh, there can be no sort of one rule for everyone. If this is what you want to do, go ahead and do it, and we'll see how it works. Right? Marjorie, is that fine? It's difficult for me to say that this is. If I say yes to this, then it will be actually a correct answer. It's not like this. You can do lots of things.
Yeah, so while the brief was also being made, we had the similar discussion that it should be a very open ended kind of brief where everyone can put in their own ideas and go their own ways. It is up on one's image ability to transfer the whole idea into those 4 pages in 1500 words with sketches and pictures.
I think the problem problem is really the way that we imagine both architecture education as well as is that we always imagine that or even the design of housing or the design of an institution. We always imagine that there are certain things that you have to do and only then is it correct. We are used to a sort of exam paper type of understanding of art, you know. And I think this film trophy is not interested in that sort of exam paper mode. It's interested in you guys using your intelligences because it trusts you to have intelligence and creative and an urge to be able to tell something important, tell something that's exciting you to the world. And that's what we are interested in. We are interested in your own enthusiasm, excitement, and analytical intelligence to be able to do. Yeah. Kush, you can use anything you like. Yes, you think animation is important. You think hybrid forms are important for your storytelling. I'm okay with anything. You just have to make sure that it's done well. And well doesn't mean finished. Well means it has to be able to tell the story well. Sometimes we have that problem as architects. No, we think he rendered कर दिया तो अच्छा building है. So you don't have that problem. I think 7 to 10 minutes, right? That's the one that we've given them.
Yeah.
Channel. Yeah.
So the next question revolves around the site location and other things. So they're asking, can we focus on a non-built architecture or a ritual or a virtual space, and can we mix different scales? For example, juxtaposing intimate interiors with vast urban landscapes.
Yes. I mean, yes is my simple yes. You can. Um, you can do anything you like. Your art, I mean, it's like what you're telling me is that I want to make an argument, and I'm interested in the argument and how you're using the material to make the argument. If you think the large and the small and the animation and the storytelling is all going to be important for your telling of the story, then please go ahead. Yes, no specifying the camera frames and you're going to record it. I think it's there in your submission list what you need to send. Just follow that. Yeah. We have said the kind of frame rates, the film duration, the format. That's it. Can the community be completely fictional or imaginative? Okay, if that's what you want. Does the script need to have an active structure? Can it be an abstract or metaphorical representation of the given project? As long as it's clear what you're trying to do, you can do anything you like. I don't need a script. I need an argument. I'm not in the whole thing. There is no place for a script. This is only the initial concepts and frame and the treatment along with the sites and locations involved. I do not expect a script.
Yes. So
Yeah, Dave.
yeah. So if anyone has joined late, this is the whole gist of the conversation sir has been having with everyone, that sir is not expecting any kind of script or a perfect thing. The argument needs to justify what you're doing, and that is how you'll proceed for the stage 2 final film production. Yeah, that's it from the query set we have received from the people who have not joined meet, and others, if you have any more questions, then we can proceed. Or yeah.
Particular scene requires a different frame rate for the mood of it. Yes, you can do whatever you want to. As long as it works as a 7 minute film that you can see in an MP4 format or an MOV format. Yeah.
Yeah. So anything more you want to add with regard to?
No, I'm just looking forward to I'm looking forward to reading your ideas. I'm excited by the fact that all of you all will be trying something. It's unfortunate that we can't allow all the films to be made because that would just be a logistical nightmare. But I would urge you, even if you are not selected, to continue and make your films because it is really an exciting new medium that best of luck to everyone, and thank you, Nikit, for this meeting. And if you have any other further questions, please direct them at Nikit, and he can then send them to me, and maybe we can have another session meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have another couple of minutes if anyone is willing to ask any questions, or else we'll wind up with the session and the recording for the same will be available on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
You can unmute yourself instead of typing if needed. Well, I guess that's it for the day, sir, because we have answered most of the questions.
Nikit, am I in the meeting or I mean, hello?
Yeah, sir. I had a bad connection, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah,
you froze, so I didn't
yeah,
know what was
yeah.
happening. So I believe there were two people raising their hands. There was I think a boy called Sai or a woman called Sai and Sanjana. I don't know where they've gone.
Yeah, guys, if you want to ask questions or queries, you can just directly put up Sai and Sanjana.
No. I just don't. I think they've withdrawn their hand. I
Yeah.
don't see them anymore.
How do we come to an argument? So they're asking how do we
How do
come
we
to?
come to an
Yeah.
argument? You sit and have a conversation with your group and teams. What is the kind of things that you want to talk about as far as that, as far as the team is concerned? That's just it. Everyone will have their own methods of coming to what they want to say. You have to have something to say in life. No? I can't tell you what to say in life.
Yep. Okay then, guys. If you have any more queries, you can just put up the same in the queries form we have, and we'll take this last question,
There
sir.
is a
Yeah.
there's a question from Saloni and there's Bharat and Parthiv.
Yeah.
Uh, can the students from BDES participate in the competition or is it only for BR students? That's up to the NASA president and the
Yeah.
NASA organizers. Who knows?
So we
I
had.
can't care less who's.
So it is particularly for BARC students only, not supposedly associated or non-associated. It is open for all the students of BARC around the world. Only BARC students, not B Design or any other field students.
Okay. How much time will we get for the filming part? Sir, tell us, sir, Nikit, how much time do they get?
So you'll be getting something around 30 to 45 days. It would be mostly more than 40 days is what we have been having discussions. So as soon as the stage 1 entries are here, so we'll evaluate them with a set of jurors, and then we'll be sending out all the shortlisted one. Then you can proceed with it.
Yeah. Sai is asking any movie recommendations on this topic. The world of film is vast, and there's an incredible history of documentary films. What I can, well, there is a series of films. It's 10 one-hour episodes done by a man called Mark Cousins. It's called The Story of Film. It's a good place to begin to get a sense as to what the history of film has been. And all of the in each of the episodes, he cover different kinds of films being made around the world. So you can kind of join that. You can watch that. I think it's available somewhere online. You can find it. It's called The Story of Film. So you can pick films from there and watch them. Look at the filmmakers themselves and the work that they have done. He also covers documentary film in India, and that's also a very interesting genre. You can also look at the range of contestants of the Nagari film competition that the Charles Korea Foundation holds. They've been doing it for, I think, 5 years now. So there are many different kinds of films there as well. That's another place that you can look at. Bharat, I don't think I'll be able to kind of explain the title entirely again. I think the recording, like Likit is saying, is available on their YouTube channel. Maybe you can see it there. And if you have any other questions, you can ask Likit and he can then forward that to me. We can.
Yeah, we'll be addressing that collectively through the query swarm only. Shall we wind up the session, sir? Or you do you want to take
I'm okay with
questions?
it, but if there are any
Yeah. How many characters can participate in this short film?
Likit, your voice is breaking up. Can you just type it out because I can't hear you clearly.
It is in the chat box, sir.
How many characters can participate in this short film?